Hi, my name is Mike Parham, part of WWT's National Facilities Practice, and today we're going to talk about APC's modular UPS solutions that we have here in our Advanced Technology Center. So I'm standing in front of a traditional UPS, and we'll talk a little bit about some issues that customers have with the traditional UPS design, and then we're going to move down and take a look at a different approach. So historically, the way data centers have been designed is with what's called a watts per square foot. So how big is my data center? I apply a watts per square foot, and that tells me how big of a UPS I need to buy. So it doesn't really take into account what's my day one load. It really is just trying to predict the future of where am I going to be sitting at 10, 15 years from now. And that's how large of a UPS we would actually install. If we want to add redundancy to a design like that, we would need to install two of these large UPSs for an A-B feed, both sharing the load. That way, if one were to fail, the load would fall over to the other UPS. So we find that it's oftentimes very costly to do that, very expensive to do that. It is the most redundant way to do a solution, and APC certainly has those solutions available. But what we're going to go actually take a look at is a more modular, scalable, right-sized approach that APC has to offer. So we're standing in front of APC's Symmetra technology. And the Symmetra technology is really a different approach to sizing and designing UPSs for data centers. Back when the previous technology we were looking at, we really needed to kind of guess to see how big am I going to need a system that will last me 5, 10, 15 years. The approach of APC Symmetra is to start with what we know our day one load is, and then slowly add on with hot swap and modular components. So this technology starts very small at the rack footprint for maybe wiring closets, IDFs, MDFs in a 2 kVA form factor. And we can get that all the way up to a 16 kVA rack mount solution. Once we move into the data center solution, we typically want to have a larger 3-phase environment, and APC does a great job of moving that modular scalable architecture into the data center, and they do that with the Symmetra PX product line. So I'm standing in front of the Symmetra PX 250, which utilizes 25 kilowatt hot swap power modules, but APC also has a smaller footprint that uses 10 kilowatt power modules. So the whole concept is, if I know my day one load is, let's say, 50 or 100, that's all I'm going to install, and I'm going to do that by using hot swap power modules. So let's open this up and take a look at how the system works. So here we have the hot swap power modules. Each one is rated at 25 kilowatts. So again, in the smaller form factor, these power modules will be rated at 10 kilowatts, similar footprint. And another thing you can see right from the beginning with this style of architecture is that everything is based in a rack format. So it's really, APC does a great job of blurring the lines between a large facilities type of UPS solution versus really more of an IT type of equipment. So again, in this example, we've got 25, 50, 75, maybe I only need 100 kilowatts of power. I install my 5th power module, and now I have what's called a power array, much like a storage RAID array. The power that's coming out of these power modules are all shared. If one were to fail, it doesn't really matter because this was my internal N+1. So we discussed earlier the difference between N+1, and 2N. This is a great solution to give the customer redundancy without having to go out and buy 2 large UPSs that we may never grow into. So we start with more of a right-sized power approach, and with these hot swap power modules, we can simply add in more as we need it. Then we can also possibly decrease the load if we need to, which I know sounds a little backwards, but a lot of customers are consolidating, and they're actually shrinking the overall power footprint. They may increase the rack power density, but overall in the room, they're going to shrink that down. Depending on what type of technology the UPS is, we don't want UPS sitting at a very low load, meaning we don't want a 10%, 15, 20, 30% load on the UPS. In some cases, that's just wasting energy. So I can actually walk up to these power modules and shut them off if I need to. Or again, I think in most cases, we're going to see customers adding these modules in when capacity is needed. So again, what we're looking at is the Symmetra PX 250. It uses the 25 kilowatt power modules. In this frame, I can get up to 10 modules, which is either 225 of redundancy or 250 kilowatts of capacity. This system can be upgraded on the fly. I can come in and actually change out my static switch. I can add another cabinet and slide in 10 more power modules, making this system a 500 kilowatt or 475 N+1 solution. So let's move down and take a look at the batteries, another great feature of the Symmetra product line. So I'm standing in front of the battery cabinet that is, again, in row and adjacent to my power module cabinet. The nice thing about the APC approach is keeping with that thought of being able to pay as I grow, scale as I grow, but more importantly, being able to replace a failed component without having to put my UPS in what's called bypass mode. So back when we started talking about UPS, is really the main function of a UPS is twofold. One is to clean the power as it's coming in from the utility feed to make sure our IT equipment is always protected by clean filtered power. But then the other mode of what a UPS does is if the utility power fails, the batteries kick in and give us enough time to safely shut down our IT equipment. So basically, just to review, we never want to send unfiltered power down to our IT equipment. So this comes into play with batteries, because batteries are typically the first point of the UPS, or part of the UPS that's going to fail. A battery is just like the battery you have at your house. They all have their lifetime, or life expectancy, and they will fail at some point. So if I have just a single UPS, which we looked at earlier, and I have a failure in my battery, I'm going to need to put that UPS in a bypass mode. Again, bypass mode means that I'm sending unfiltered street power right down to my IT racks. In the APC Symmetra product line, if I have a battery failure, it's really not that big of a deal because we have user replaceable batteries. So I can simply walk over to this battery, pull it out. So I would have received an email notification telling me that this particular battery module, this particular cartridge is bad. I can pull it out, replace it. I didn't have to put my UPS in a bypass mode. Everything is still live. In fact, this is serving out power to over 23 APC racks here in our data center. But as you can see, we didn't have to really do anything special to the UPS. It's really just like working on IT equipment. Again, another great way that APC blurs the lines between IT and facilities. This is very similar to working on a server that we're putting in additional hard drives or memory or something that's hot swap. So I guess in summary, some key takeaways from the APC Symmetra product line, which again start at a very small rack mount and can scale all the way to a very large facility. That this UPS is 250 kW, they can go up to 500 kW. I think the key takeaways are a few things. One, it allows customers to pay as they grow. We can start with a much smaller footprint and install components that are modular, hot swap as we need to. We get redundancy without having to buy two UPSs. We can get that redundancy internal since really each one of these power modules is its own separate UPS and they all work together. And I think three, it helps customers avoid downtime by making these components easier to work on because human error is still the #1 reason of downtime. So the easier we can make these devices to work on, hopefully the less chances we have downtime in our data center. So again, Mike Parham, part of Worldwide's facilities team. This has been an overview of the APC product line, specifically the Symmetra UPSs, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you.